I'm not sure about Loch Ness, but I know I believe in angels. I believe in happiness.
Good evening, everybody. It's wonderful to see you again. Here we are at the News Hour, and I am so excited yet again to bring back J.C. Schweingrouber of Vista Front Partners. And Vista Front Partners, why aren't you coming to the street? He's coming. 3, 2, 1. J.C., how are you?
I'm good. Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. It is a Friday. This has been a week of like days that are really weeks in length, at least for me. How about for you?
It's been a long week, but I'm glad it's Friday. So happy Friday, everybody. Settle in, enjoy the weekend. We earned it. We got here.
We sure did. So this week was a little bit more refreshing as far as the market goes, because now, like I said, super busy, kids everywhere. I'm zooming, zipping back and forth, but I was still trying to listen to a little bit of my news, and what I could gather, totally uneducated because I could be way off the mark, but it sounds like this week sort of leveled off a little bit from the past 2 weeks, which tanked. Is that pretty accurate?
Oh, that's very accurate. I think, the market is, well, for lack of a better way of saying it, is very oversold right now. That doesn't mean people aren't going to keep selling because there's panic selling, right? That some people do, but yeah, the market had been so oversold, and all you're hearing about is just inflation, supply chain, war in Russia, all this stuff, the same thing, just over and over and over. And, at some point there has to be a capitulation where people who are looking for like a great opportunity to buy in this market are looking at some of the values of these stocks, and you just can't pass up on buying some of these companies at incredibly cheap prices, 30, 40, 50% off their highs. So, I mean, it's a great way to, step in the market. Like we've been talking before on previous shows, we get so many opportunities in our lifetime to buy into really bad markets, which is hard to do. It's like stepping into a wrestling ring, just taking a beating, right? It's like having Mike Tyson pummeling you for like 5 rounds, but you work through it, you get out of it, you buy good companies cheap, you come out better. Think about this, Elizabeth. We have a presidential election once every 4 years.
Right.
We have Olympics once every 4 years. That's a long time.
Mm-hmm.
We might have a bear market once every 4 years. That's how rare they are. So take advantage of the opportunities.
Now, just once again, for our viewers, for myself, what's the definition between the bull and the bear markets?
Bull markets are when everything's fine. The stocks, the indexes are averaging or are going up consistently, which is what happens most of the time when you take a long-term view of things. You have your down days and up days. Bear markets are when the market actually turns south and everything starts going down. There's what you call during a bull market what's called a correction. So sometimes things get overbought, just like right now they're oversold. So you can buy things and run the price and value of stocks up to areas where they really don't belong. It's not a fair value. It's way too overpriced. I wouldn't buy, you wouldn't go in and buy a $100 purse for 180. Just wouldn't do it.
Right.
So you wait for those prices to come back down. And that's what happens with a correction. And a correction is usually when the stock market sells off anywhere up to 10%, right? 10 to 20%. Anywhere from really 5% down to 20% down. So from its recent highs. A bear market is when it goes more than 20%. So the S&P 500 index dropped into bear market territory. So it sold off more than 20% from its high. NASDAQ was down over 30. The Dow was down over 20. So actually Dow was down probably close to 30, is 25, something like that. So that's a bear market. So when you have consistently a bear market, when the markets are down that way for a long time, it takes a lot of money to come back in the market and buy those before you turn the market around and it starts going back to a bull market. Bear markets thankfully don't last that long. 12 months, 9 to 18 months on average. So we're probably about 6 months into one, 6, 7 months. So how much longer are we going to be in one? I don't know, but time is usually historically limited for people to take the opportunity to jump in and buy.
And that's a question that I was thinking of was, in your opinion, what do you think needs to happen for that correction to at least, level off the market so that it's no longer a bear market? Like, does it have to be a bear market versus a bull market, or is there something in between?
Well, there's kind of the in between where it trades in a range, so even if the market came back like 3 or 4% this week, which is really nice to see a move in the market like that, because we're down so much. So we got some of it back this week, but even if it trades in a range where it's down between like 8 and 12% for a while, I wouldn't be surprised.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really a bear market at that point. It's more of just a correction, but because it's been down so long, people will still call it, we're trading in a bear market, because everyone wants to see the indexes going up, the stocks going up. Now, what do we need to do to get past that? Well, yeah, I guess they've talked so much about recession, and you and I have talked about this before. I kind of said, hey, I think we're probably already in one. We just won't know it for another month till the end of July when the numbers come out, on the GDP numbers. But a lot of analysts are saying, hey, 50-50 chance we might get one by the end of the year or early next year. Well, whatever they're doing to talk inflation, it's also talk about recession. It's also tamping down inflation a little bit. We've seen energy prices come down, oil prices.
Mm-hmm.
This week we saw a lot of things happen. This is kind of like stuff people don't pay attention to. So let me go nerd for a minute.
Okay.
All the things that we need in production in this country started going down. Steel prices started going down. Wheat, corn, copper. Copper is big. Aluminum. All these things went down in value. So that makes it cheaper to make these goods going forward. So if producers are getting these things at a cheaper rate now, then it means that we're going to get them at a cheaper rate in the future. So does that mean inflation has peaked? Maybe. Some people are talking that inflation has peaked. That would be a great thing. However, it doesn't mean inflation's going away. It just means if it's 8%, it peaked, it may stay at 8%. What we needed to do is start trending down. So when we start seeing those numbers, and we'll start seeing those over the next couple of months, we've already got maybe some early indication that it's actually started to turn. Now, how long that lasts, I don't know. We'll wait and have to see what policy changes are done in the future. I know the Federal Reserve is going to probably hike another 75 basis points next month. And they're still tightening with their quantitative easing. So that's in the works that's going on right now. But the biggest thing that I need to look at to see things change for the better is we're going into another round of, or what I call earnings season. Mm-hmm. And as we've talked, probably you've heard me ad nauseum saying on here, buy companies that have good earnings, that make things, that have cash flow, right, things that are needed. That's what you call defensive type stocks. So with the hit to the economy that we've already had, things slowing down, and the inflation that's hit producers of goods and services, we're going to see those earnings expectations come down. So companies are probably going to say, yeah, we didn't hit our earnings this time. And that'll cause maybe another sell-off in the market.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll give downward guidance going forward, which is fine. That's normal. I'm so glad we can get back to things like paying attention to the important stuff like earnings. So that's going to be a big thing. So once I think we see that and people can kind of reevaluate the market and a fair value where it's at, that may be the catalyst this coming quarter to bottom out and maybe go forward. I'm not predicting we're going to turn up at that point, but it will fit into the timeline of a typical bear market and and recession / turnaround. Because the time everyone realizes we're in a recession, we're probably well on our way out of it. Just by the time the numbers come in, because we're always 3 months behind the government getting numbers out to us. So
that seems so optimistic with everything that's going on. I know some news outlets like to say, Putin is driving most of this. Other news outlets want to blame Biden and the administration here in the United States for driving this. I'm always somewhat in the middle. And that seems like that's a little bit optimistic as far as my budget's concerned. We do have a question here. Ken Dodge, in your professional opinion, do you see gas prices ever dropping to a manageable level again soon? And I'm going to piggyback on that because I've noticed in years past when certain, may it be rent or prices at the grocery store, when certain prices rise, that is now the new norm. Do you see that happening for gas?
Not necessarily for gas, because even under previous administrations, when everybody wanted to complain about whether it's OPEC or the administration making decisions, gas prices had gone way up. I mean, at one point, I think we were looking at $3.80 under Obama's administration, close to $4, and everybody said, "Oh, it'll never come back down." Well, 2 years ago we were paying like $1.80, up $1.90.
Yeah.
So gas. So I don't really kind of subscribe to that when it comes to the oil and gas industry. There are other prices that are sticky, however, because once you take, for example, what's going on in Russia and Ukraine, where they make so much of the corn and the wheat and so forth, that's like 25% of the world's supply. Well, that puts the world in a tough position globally when it comes to food supplies. So those prices, I mean, you have to have several seasons, to work that out.
Mm-hmm.
You can turn on pumps, and you can turn on the Keystone and get that working, or go start drilling in Anwar again, or any number of things to get oil production up next week if we needed to.
Mm-hmm.
So we just don't have those policy decisions. Food, on the other hand, that's what I call a sticky price. Once those prices go up, they kind of stick. It's like if you raise rent on a property you own, you're not likely to lower that rent again.
Right.
Stay there. So some things are going to be sticky, and that was Ken. That was a really good question. I would like to think that we could get. I don't know where gas prices will go in the short term. We're just going to have to kind of get used to where it's at. But until there are policy decisions that can bring oil and gas prices back down here, and I don't want to be too political, but if there was a change in administration in 2024, then we would likely see some of those pipelines opening and going back to Canada for more oil and gas, and maybe for the first time in 50 years build our own freaking refinery to refine gasoline. That would be kind of nice.
Yeah.
But the ones that we do have that are in the Gulf area, we push them to the limit. You can't expect them all to run perfectly 24/7 without maintenance and things like that. So they do have to shut down, or in a hurricane,
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So there are policy changes, I think, that are going to, in the next turn of politics, that are going to have to be a combination of oil and natural gas, and fossil fuels and renewables, because the world's not turning back from this now. We've gone to a certain point where there's so much expectation, so much technology change too, that some of the renewables are going to be very affordable in about a decade. Mm-hmm. So see where it goes.
I pulled up this chart. I want to be a geek for a minute because I love looking at these charts. I hope that everybody viewing, if you are looking on something larger than maybe an iPhone, you'll be able to read this. If not, so these are the gas prices January. Let's just look at January 1994. Can you take a guess? Because I'm pretty sure you can't see these numbers, JC. What are we paying in 94 for a gallon of gas?
$1.50, $1.60.
99 cents.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay. So let's go to 2004. We were at, what do you think?
$1.80 to $2.40, somewhere in that range. We 9/11 happened. We're in the Middle East.
Okay. So January 2004, it was $1.61.
Okay.
I'm guessing this is on the national average. So this, of course, that price for 2004 in, New York versus California versus Atlanta, it's all going to be very, very different. Yeah. Going forward, 2014, we were at $3.39, so almost $3.40 really. It's interesting to see these fluctuations because you have 2012 where we were at $3.44, and now January of 2022, it's $3.41. And of course, now we all know $5 is the national average. So that's quite interesting. And like I said, I like to geek over numbers like that. But that's a good question. And now Ken has another one here. If rents don't go down, or disabilities checks don't go down, don't you see more and more people becoming homeless? This is a great question. And I've noticed this question coming up. I use the Nextdoor app as one of those, things just to stay connected in the community. And there have been a lot of postings in my area, which we've never really had any homeless in this area because we're so far away from the city and so far away from public transit. A lot of people are noticing that we are seeing some homelessness in areas that we've never seen it before. What's your opinion?
Yeah, it's a very likely possibility that you're going to see it go up to a certain extent. Keep in mind, though, a lot of the, I guess they get cost of living adjustments on those types of, whether it becomes welfare or Social Security, things like that, people on fixed income. That the next cost of living adjustment for Social Security, I read they're expecting at 8.1%. Now, Social Security recipients haven't had something like that in forever. I'm the early 80s, when inflation was really, really terrible. So yeah, Ken, that's a great question. That's very likely. And I just want to throw this out here kind of on a personal note. Elizabeth, I run a small regional nonprofit on the side. And that was a program that I did an interview on a podcast. I invited a lady on for the foundation's podcast who runs crisis centers. And this was right between Christmas and New Year's. And I wish I'd had her on before Christmas. But I didn't know the impact of homelessness in my region. Because in Central Appalachian area, you have a lot of people who may be homeless that may have relatives like cousins where they couch surf. And they fall outside of the numbers. Well, the crisis center sort of picks up those numbers and they get to see just how bad homelessness is in the area. So we actually, I reached out to some regional churches to start doing on a quarterly thing, not a funding drive, but let's get what they need. Let's clothing. And so I asked them, like, what is in your most need? And believe it or not, children's clothing was one of the biggest needs that they have right now, which is heartbreaking to hear. But we're out raising, getting donations and clothing from people like from last year's school clothes to, to donate people with kids and things like that. So that's Ken, that's a great question. But as far as things like that go, we're all blessed here that are watching this. Let's pay it forward. If we have an extra pair of pants or two that can't get around my fat A anymore, I'm giving them away, right? So we're going to do that on a quarterly basis, just giving to those centers. And I didn't know that they had such a wide range that they have to oversee, which is incredibly difficult for these people. So, man, they're doing the Lord's work, helping people that can't afford these things and helping them out with finding jobs and transitioning into a better life. So, yeah, so keep those people in mind. It's not easy.
So I want to put the name of your nonprofit up here while we're talking about that. And then I have a thought because there's a particular post that I was going to mention on the Nextdoor. What is the nonprofit that you?
It's called Foundation for Appalachian Advancement. And the website, if anybody's interested, it's supportappalachia.org.
Okay.
So I just did a brand new look website. So we're doing some changes. I'm going to be adding some things to it. So bear with us with a brand new website as over the next days and weeks, we add some new things to it.
All right, I'm going to ask a stupid question because my spell check can't find it. How do you spell Appalachian?
That's APPALACHIA. Like you would put A before I, but no, not in Appalachia.
Oh my gosh. All right, everybody, hang on for a second while I try to get my spelling correct. All right, so it's supportappalachia.org. SupportAppalachia.org.
That's it.
Oh, my lucky night. So like I said, I was going to mention that post, and there was a mom, a young mom, I believe single mother, but I'm not sure. And she had posted, she said, I have 2 kids and I have nothing to feed them, absolutely nothing. And immediately people jumped in and they said, oh, we have this particular church that has a food pantry. We have in our county, the schools are delivering food over the summer. So you can get free breakfast and free lunch for the whole family. You just have to call the school and say, we need these resources. So we're very, very fortunate that there's a lot of resources in this area, but not everybody knows about it.
That's the problem. There's such a lack of information about what's out there and what's available. So a lot of these folks who are homeless that actually find their way to the crisis center, for example, and they talk to them, well, they don't even know what programs that are out there to help them pay for rent. Governments will allocate money aside for this. Problem is, governments are not going to tell you.
Mm-mm.
I mean, you don't even get an ad on TV or on your phone, nothing like that. So I think that's the fault of government. And I don't want to throw everybody under the bus in government, but if you're going to have those programs, make sure that money is used for people that need it. Because there's so many people, I guess we always are afraid to make donations to places because we're thinking, some people milk the system or, take advantage. Well, that's true. That's always going to be true. But there's so many people that fall between the cracks that don't even know where to go to look. So
on supportappalachia.org, do you have any resources on there to where people in your area can find how to apply for those types of government funded programs?
We don't have anything on the website just yet because, like I said, we were just redoing it, and I'm the one actually doing it when I have time. So that is one thing that I want to do. And but we have a podcast that you can click on from the website called Appalachian Shine, which has nothing to do with moonshine, but it's about shining a light on the best and brightest of what we have to offer in a region. So I try to have interesting guests on that have something that they could share. So on occasion, when I have someone from the crisis center or another organization that's doing great work, I'll always like to link their websites in on those podcasts. So if you can, you can watch them, you can listen to them online. Sometimes if they give me permission, we do a video Zoom. I'll put it on YouTube also, so people can watch it, and but I'll have the links available there. But yeah, that's something that I do want to do on the website that we'll certainly do in the future is add some links that are helpful links for people looking for assistance.
Nice. Okay, so I pulled up the website. So anybody who searches supportappalachia.org, of course, I was born Northeast and then spent the rest of my time in the South. So I don't know how to say that name.
It's actually Appalachia. So no one here calls it Appalachia. It's one of my recent guests, his name is Jesse Ring, and he owns a vineyard and he makes wine. So they have this really nice vineyard and they have these open days for people to come in and do wine testings. He was one of those rare circumstances where he went to Virginia Tech, got his degree, went out west and worked in Silicon Valley for forever, and then came back home to retire. He failed, had a failed congressional run because he wanted to get into politics. But he's like, yeah, I'm just going to chase a dream, and I'm retired. Me and my wife are going to set up a vineyard. And that was one of his pet peeves. He would be out west. Everybody called it Appalachia. He's like, it's not Appalachia. It's so he would always like put that right in the front of his book. So he wrote a really interesting book from Appalachia to Silicon Valley and back, kind of like a hobbit going on an adventure and back. So kind of in that vein. But it was a really good book and he's got a really good story to tell. But yeah. But I'll just toss that out there. And also there are a lot of national groups that can help homelessness. And they go from region to region, making donations to organizations like mine or others that may need assistance. And if you find an organization that you want to donate to, and if you shop on Amazon nearly as much as I do, all right, if you go to smile.amazon.com, you can actually click on this little link there that will show you, you can pick a charity that you want to support. You don't ever have to write a check or go online and make a donation. If you just shop on Amazon and you have a charity that you want to support picked, when you go to your cart to check out, just go back to smile.amazon.com. It's the same Amazon. It's just one extra step. and they'll add up on a quarterly basis a percentage of your purchases and send to the foundation, whatever you want to support. So if you have a local animal shelter that's registered, I've got our foundation registered there. I'll give you an example of how big that is. Before the pandemic, I think this was maybe 2017 or 18, the Nature Conservancy. I'm big into those types of orgs. So I used to donate to them with my Smile purchases. They actually, one of those 2 years, because they had so many people that picked them on Amazon to support their nonprofit, they raised over $3 million just in what people purchased on Amazon. Now there's like 25 million people in Appalachia because it's 13 states, 420 counties total. So if we had 5,000, 10,000 people that picked our nonprofit, we may not ever have to ask for money. Like if you shop on Amazon like me, that's a crazy amount. So, I mean, I'm generating probably $50, $60 in donations a year just in my own purchases.
Wow. That adds up a lot. Wow.
So pay it forward to your local charity. You don't even have to write a check. Just find them on Amazon and just take that extra step to when you purchase.
So we have Ken Dodge here. He was mentioning that unfortunately those types of services are not available in my area. I've searched desperately, and I happen to know that he is in the Nashville area. So I'm not too sure if you found the same thing that I did, Ken, but it's saying here to get help with housing in Tennessee. To apply, contact or visit the management office of each apartment building that interests you. Public housing and housing choice vouchers are available to apply for either type of help. Visit your local public housing agency. I'm sure he's already done that. I want to say, aren't you also military? I know that there are many programs for our military to be able to keep them in housing. And, of course, there's the VA for healthcare and different programs such as that. So perhaps one of those would help. And his point was about rent. And he had mentioned that the 1-bedroom apartment, let's see, it was a little bit earlier in the program that he mentioned. I don't want to misquote him. So he's saying 2 years ago, he was paying $950 for a 2-bedroom apartment that is now $1,500 a month. And that is nearly the same everywhere. So here in this area, our 1 bedroom, really a large 1-bedroom, is about $2,000. That's what we're paying in the Atlanta area. So it's, just over 2,000. They're not pushing it too much for that 2nd bedroom, but it's about 2,500, which that's a lot of money.
You want me to make you really mad? Out in my neck of the woods, where it's not, I'm not near a city, right? So I'm kind of out very, very rural. 1-bedroom or maybe like a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom ranch, $1,500 is a mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to get really kind of more high end on a house, $3,000 is a mortgage. And I know people that are in cities that pay that much in rent. I'm like, gosh, I would move in 45 minutes out and own at that point.
Exactly, because that money really adds up. Now, I know that you had said that we wanted to talk about traditional 401ks and converting them. Can you tell me a little bit more about that idea?
I hate to be such a, with the market the way it's been, I don't like to sound like a Debbie Downer, telling everybody like, oh, doom and gloom. But, I wanted to point out that there are things that you can do in this market to actually save yourself some money in the long term. And in the past, we talked about the difference between traditional IRAs and Roth IRAs. And a traditional IRA, just kind of a quick refresher in case there's some new folks watching that don't know, when you make a contribution to that, if as long as you fit into, you can make a contribution to it, you can actually deduct that on your taxes. Deduct your contributions to your IRA.
Mm-hmm.
But what that means is, because you're deducting it now, when you retire and you take money out, it's taxable then as at an income level. Now, when you retire, you assume your tax bracket's going to be lower. You hope, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you assume it's going to be lower. But you may, if you don't qualify for a Roth IRA, because if you make too much money, a Roth IRA is money as an IRA, just like the other IRA. Just all it is just a vehicle. It's a box you put your money in. They just have some different rules on when you take it out. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
So with the Roth IRA, you don't get to deduct that on your taxes right now, but it grows tax-free over all those years because you already paid the taxes up front. You paid them now. When you take it out when you retire, it comes out tax-free. Well, that's very unfair. Let's say if you're in a high tax bracket, you don't qualify to make the Roth IRA. Well, that kind of sucks. You'd like some tax-free income down the road too, right? After all, you're in a high income tax bracket. Why shouldn't you get a break, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can actually, there's a way around that. If you have a traditional IRA, you can actually convert that IRA or part of it to a Roth IRA. But it's a taxable event. You need to understand that, right? So it doesn't have to stay there in the traditional. You can convert it to the Roth. And I know that kind of sounds simple, but taxes could stand in your way because, you all of a sudden have to pony up for the taxes because you may not have paid taxes on the contribution. You have to do it in the year you make the Roth conversion. So it's going to be taxable, whatever dollar amount, it's taxable at that at your tax bracket. Now, keep in mind, if you ever wanted to convert a traditional IRA money to a Roth IRA money, do you want to wait until let's just say those tax cuts that the Trump administration put in, there's 7 tax brackets now. They lowered them all.
Mm-hmm.
Those were not permanent. That'll kick in and go back at some point. So tax rates will go up in the future, unless somebody does something to make that permanent or has another vote to keep it for a while longer or whatever. So that's one thing you got to consider. Do you want to pay higher taxes down the road? Because that's going to impact your traditional IRA withdrawals, right? So the tax rates are up. So what better time to convert money to a Roth IRA after the market has had the living crap kicked out of it? Your balances are down 30-40%, and taxes are still low. So what you want to do first of all is talk to your accountant and make sure it's not kicking you up into another tax bracket.
Okay.
If you're at the very top, that doesn't really matter. You're not going to another tax bracket. So let's just give you an example. Let's say you had $100,000. That's a round number and easy to work with, and a traditional IRA, but the value is now $70,000 after the market's dropped.
Mm-hmm.
You save money by converting that $70,000 to the Roth rather than the original $100,000. Because if you wait until the market rebound and you're paying higher taxes, you're paying more in taxes. So if the stocks in your portfolio recover from $70,000, once it's in the Roth, converted over to the Roth, then you'll be able to enjoy those gains in your Roth account without worrying about taxes when you withdraw the money.
So let me ask you this. Help me out with the math here, because if I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, okay, this sounds good. All right, right, got you. $70,000. What would I be paying in taxes? What is the percent?
That's why you want to consult with your tax advisor and see what because you're going to be paying it's going to be your current income bracket.
Mm-hmm.
But if you add $70,000 to your current income, that's why you want to make sure with your accountant it doesn't kick you up into a higher tax bracket. You'll want to know that.
Okay.
So you can actually work out what your bill is going to be with your accountant before you do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it gives you the ability to convert that over to a Roth IRA and let that money grow tax-free, because you're going to take it out at some point. So
Right.
If you take advantage of tax-free growth and take money out of retirement tax-free, and you never qualified for it before, the conversion is kind of a way to get around that strict rule. So it saves you money in the long run if that's for people out there that want to do something like that.
Exactly. And this is sounding like a housekeeping item for people that are savvy, such as yourself, that are watching for the downturns in the market, for impending recession, from quarter 1, rather than sitting here to where we're almost, we're coming to the end of second quarter, starting the third. And this week has been funny because last week it was nothing but recession. And now this week is not as rocky as it was for the past couple. And everybody's, you're chilling out a little bit. They're not so like screaming recession on
Oh,
every news outlet out there. It's interesting.
oh, don't worry, they'll be back. They'll be back. Give them a week or two. They'll be right back. But yeah, here's some questions that you want to consider before you do something like this. So anybody that's doing this, ask yourself if you're doing it this year, for example, do you expect to make more money in 2022 that'll push you into a higher tax bracket?
Okay.
If so, take that into consideration. Now might be the time to do this if you're gonna, or next year you expect your income to be higher. Then now might be a better time. How much do you want to transfer from the traditional to the Roth? You don't have to do all of it. You can just do a portion of it that's going to make sense financially for you, with what you can afford in taxes, and whatever else is going on in your portfolio. Did you make non-deductible contributions to a traditional IRA? Sometimes you can still contribute, but your tax you may be in such an income level that you don't qualify for the deductibility. So that's out there too. So well, does that really matter? Yeah, it kind of does. You're not getting the deduction anyway, and yet you're going to be paying taxes. You may want to bump that up and think, yeah, maybe I'll go ahead and do this a little faster. What tax bracket are you going to fall into after the Roth conversion? And again, sitting down with your accountant or doing the math there at your table, how much am I going to have to pay in taxes, and can I afford it? So those are some questions to consider before you do it. But it can, over the long term, save you a lot of money in taxes down the road if you bite the bullet now. So these bear markets are not, there's always some way to try to find a silver lining in a bear market, and taking advantage of, traditional, converting a traditional to a Roth is one way to do it.
That's a really interesting point of view. I'm glad that you shared that with us. I have a question for you, though, for the small business owners and all of us out there where, we're not really putting our money into a 401k. We're doing other things, different investments. But as far as the businesses out there, between inflation, of course, and impending recession, however you want to call it, I'm already looking at it as, well, we're already in a recession. And I've heard, a lot of news reporters and commentators say the same. So what about us small business guys? What, if anything, can you think of that would be some good tips for us of things that we can do in this bear market, and hopeful for a full turnaround in what, like 6-9 months, maybe?
That's interesting. I'm gonna actually have to get back with you on that, because I want to think about this and do a little bit of digging, because sometimes that may involve what kind of retirement planning that you offer your employees. Because there may be some deductibilities that you can take advantage of from one different type of plan to another, maybe from a simple or a Keogh. I mean, there's so many different plans that small businesses can use. It's very confusing.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you don't know which one is best. But for how many employees? Just curious.
Well, I mean, I'd really like to cover the spectrum from the ones that have under 20 and then 50 to 100.
Okay. Let me do a little bit of digging. I can kind of get back with you on that. I'd hate to give some wrong advice, because like I said, there's so many of these plans, and that I don't deal directly in those plans, even though I can manage the portfolio of some of those plans. I don't manage the overall plan as the rules as they're determined. So but yeah, I'll definitely get back with you on that, because there probably are some ways to maybe kind of change some things up and save some money, get some deductibility that the businesses will need. And actually, I know a guy in Frankfurt that has a similar business to yours, and he was mentioning something like that 5 months ago when I was talking to him, and I will give him a call and see if he stumbled across anything that might be of interest as well.
And that would be great. I'm really curious to hear that, because, it has been so interesting, especially in the construction, house building, maintenance. All of these guys were still essential workers through the lockdowns and pandemic. So across all states, they were still allowed to work. And we noticed, especially here in the north end of Atlanta, but here in the Atlanta area, there's mom and pop shops everywhere from maintenance guys and construction guys, and they all went out on their own. And it has become very difficult to find workers. And I believe that is one of the components that, fills that bucket for why it's so hard to find some of the workers for construction and maintenance and building and, this, that, the other. So I was having a conversation and I said, you know what? That is about to dry up. And we're going to see a lot of these guys that realize going out on their own, especially in a recession, when supplies are short and you never know which week, which supply is going to be short or inflated, hugely inflated, that they're going to, sort of throw in the towel and be like, hey, how about we partner here? Or we do this or we do that. It's about to turn around. And I'm curious as to what are some of those tips to keep the small businesses really solvent and out of harm's way in a market like this, in an environment like this, which it's been a really long time since we've seen some of the numbers that we're seeing today.
So it really comes down to how nimble of a business are you and how you can control your own costs. And in a recession, you're looking at every single cost, everyone. Now, unfortunately, a lot of those businesses that are small mom and pop that spun off, they probably won't be around. I mean, this is business after all. I mean, we have every right, opportunity in this country to succeed, but we also have every opportunity to fail. And running a business is not easy. So, if you budget for a certain thing and then lumber prices skyrocket, I mean, that was not long ago, right?
Right.
Before they went back down. You don't expect your costs to go up 10% overnight, So a lot of people may budget, I guess, just for like a little extra cash to take care of those emergencies of 3 to 5%. Well, whoa, wait a minute, it's 10%, and now I can't pay my employees. Unfortunately, you'll see quite a few probably go out of business. That I hate to say it. I mean, I wish everybody all the success, but some of those businesses probably shouldn't have been businesses in the first place. It's kind of back during the whole .com thing back in the late 90s. There were so many. There were like 4,000 of these companies.
Yeah.
And a handful survived. It didn't need that many. So I think so maybe that'll solve some of the employers' problem with finding workers. They'll have to go back and work somewhere else.
Oh, big time. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just me personally, we have found a few of them to where they're still doing their side jobs on the weekend when we're not operational, but the 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, they're working the grind with us and they're still keeping their small business just on the weekend and side jobs and holiday jobs and things like that, which help to make ends meet because we are definitely in an environment to where two people are working. If you have a family, both partners are working at least one job. And I say at least one job. And my parents, if they're watching the show, they're going to be like, what? Yeah, there's a lot of them where, let's say it's a husband-wife relationship. The husband has 2 jobs, the wife has 2 jobs, and you're still trying to manage the kids in the middle. And I don't like how that has all come about. Because it takes away from the rearing of the children.
Yeah.
And it's a huge ball of wax. Is just no good.
Yeah. And, I've said this on here before. I mean, I know the whole crux of the thing we talk about on this show is money and investing. But, folks, you have to realize, I mean, I love this meme that I see going around. It's got this big shadow hanging over this guy walking up the stairs. And it says, don't kill yourself for a job where your employer will replace you in 2 seconds if you died. That's very true. And, as much as we all want to have extra money, there's some things that money can't buy. And that's that time with children, with your kids and things like that. I know it's hard you can't afford the extra toys or whatever if those situations come up, but those are precious things. And, as when it comes to investing, let's take our priorities and kind of set them straight. And the first thing that we should be investing in is each other and time and quality relationships, and then let everything else build around that. I mean, I know it sounds so cliche to say that, but those are the important things in life. And just cherish those things. And if you have extra money to save for tomorrow, great. I'd love to help you. I'd love to help you succeed. But I think in a way, so many people look at, we watch these celebrity shows and, the high living lifestyle, the affluent lifestyles. We've watched this so long that you think that's just kind of normal. And, even poor people have a pair of Nike tennis shoes, an Apple cell phone, a smartphone. We're walking around and, and with some of the best stuff that other people in other parts of the world can only wish they had.
Mhm.
And, but yeah, let's, sometimes the priorities need to be reset and pay attention to those friendships and those families. And it's important.
It is very important. So lead us out with a little bit of forecasting. What do you think is going to happen going into next week? Or really, we're rounding the corner. It's almost July 1st.
Yeah, we're going into the third quarter, starting the third quarter of the year. That means all these companies will be reporting their second quarter results.
Mhm.
That'll come out starting about 2 weeks. It kicks off with the aluminum company Alcoa. That's the first one, and so I always watch that one. That's the first shoe to drop all the time. Yeah, I expect companies to kind of lower their guidance expectations going forward. That'll probably hurt stocks again. It may give some people that didn't get in yet another opportunity to get in at some lower prices. But once you start to realize, and the market is forward looking. So it's going to be looking, once we know recession's here, we know companies are lowering earnings expectations, we're going to get an opportunity to actually look at those numbers,
Mm-hmm.
put everything else aside. And then, of course, you'll still hear the squawking of inflation, all the stuff we've talked about. Those people, like I said, they'll be back. Give them a week or two. They'll be screaming again. But the markets are forward looking, and bear markets don't last forever. And right now, there are two types of investors out there. And there are those that are focusing on what they're going through,
Mm-hmm.
and there are those that are focusing on what they're going to. And I'll give you one guess as to which one of those are going to come out 10 years from now much better than the other.
Oh, going to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So don't let the pessimism. Nobody ever made money in being depressed and pessimism and doom and gloom. You're going to hear people that say, I've been saying this coming, this day of reckoning is coming, blah, blah, blah. Get away from that garbage. They've been saying that my entire life. and I'm seeing them on TV, Fox Business and CNBC more and more. And at some point it's just it sounds like what's that duck that squawks on Daffy Duck? You can't understand a darn thing he's saying.
Yeah.
Like Charlie Brown, school teacher. That has to shut up, because people are going to look for reasons to get optimistic. And that's when everybody's fearful. That's when you be greedy. It's classic Warren Buffett investment strategy. Never did him wrong. So who am I to second guess that cat? He's one of the richest guys on the planet and one of the most successful investors of all time. So stop looking what you're going through. I know it's hard to do. When I place a trade like earlier this week when the markets are down, or last week, it's like standing in front of a freight train. It's like, oh, just hit me. I know I'm buying the stock, but it's going to go down $2. I know as soon as I hit, buy. But you have weeks like this and kind of validate things, and who knows what's going to happen the next short term. But we'll work through this. So get optimistic. Think about your future 10 years from now. Do you want to make good decisions now that'll impact you 10 years from now? Now's the time to do it.
Right. I think that's great advice. Really, really great advice. Well, thank you so much for your time, and hopefully let's get together again soon. I know I'm on sort of a, come again and leave for a couple of weeks and then come again kind of summer schedule. That's just how it is around here. It's a lot of busy kitties.
Well, everyone missed you, so they're glad you're back.
Yes.
Show coming up tonight, and that's going to be a fun one.
We do. We have Dallas Malloy. She's quite interesting. So I hope that everybody can stay tuned and join us at 9 p.m. And JC, I want to say thank you so much. And let's do this again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. So before I let you go, tell us again, how can we contact you? Where do we go?
All right. Go to www.vistafrontpartners.com. And there's a contact button on there. If you want to get me directly, jc@vistafrontpartners.com. And I want to say thanks again for letting me share my nonprofit. We've been kind of revamping what we're trying to do and want to make a bigger impact in the community. And I'll toss this out there. None of us that are on the board or do anything take any money from it. it's all volunteer stuff. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that venture. And I have it up here. Again, you can find the website at www.suppapalachia.org, supportappalachia.org. I did it.
There you go. Hey, thanks. And I appreciate everybody for listening. And if you have any specific questions or anything that I can help you out with directly, feel free to touch base with me. And I Zoom. I actually talk with clients on weekends or prospective clients. I'll Zoom with you or phone call and chat just to, if we can help you out, let us know.
Well, thank you so much. All right, we're going to see you again very soon. Have a wonderful weekend. It's going to be a gorgeous weekend. So enjoy it. You got any big plans?
I'm going to sleep in tomorrow. that's my plan. No big plans. Just going to kind of relax this weekend, maybe clean around the house. There actually is some live music. There's a little spot where I sometimes go do a book signing.
Yeah.
And tomorrow they're having a lady up there who's a blues singer. And I haven't heard any blues from this region, so I may drive up there. And it's a overlook where they play in a crafts and art store. So I may go up there and have some homemade ice cream and listen to some live music.
Are you signing books this weekend?
No, not this weekend.
Okay. You got to tell us next time that you are, because I want to definitely advertise it.
Oh, will do. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. We'll see you again soon.
All right, bye.
Bye. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you tune in tonight at 9 p.m. If you happen to catch the show and it's not live when you catch it, please make sure that you do subscribe on YouTube at the Caffeinated Cooper Show channel and ring that bell, subscribe. Hey, you'll never miss another show. So everybody, thank you so much for watching. We are blessed. You are blessed. Mwah. I love you.